Welcome back to Uncommon Analysis. Today I want to take a few minutes to talk about the state of the Trump administration and his support, and particularly in regards to the impact of what's going on in the economy. But before I get to that, if you're new to the channel and you like this sort of content, please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends and neighbors, join the conversation. We're happy to have you. And to our longtime listeners, welcome back. Always glad to see you again. Okay, so Trump, as you know, at the beginning of April, introduced reciprocal tariffs and some pretty high tariffs against some trading partners who don't play nice, particularly China. I did an earlier video a couple weeks back regarding the really only two players that have any chance of engaging in a long-term trade war with the United States, just due to their size. That would be China and the EU. The EU engaging in a long-term trade war is highly unlikely. It's a large group of individual states, each of which have different impacts of U.S. trade. So the idea you can get all of Europe to be in agreement for a long-term trade war, I think is not likely to happen. It varies. Some countries don't care because they don't do a whole lot of trade outside to the U.S. Other countries trade a lot with the U.S. They have very large trade volumes with the United States, so they're less likely, and they're usually the bigger economies in Europe, so they're going to be less likely to go along with any kind of confrontational model. I think most of the world will figure itself out. They'll negotiate, they'll get decent trade deals in place, and we'll move on. The other one being China, and China does what China wants. China marches to its own beat. China does not usually react in short term. China has its own motivations. China needs a safe face. China does all kinds of things. So predicting what China's going to do, China could engage in a very long-term trade war with the United States, even to its own detriment, and they won't care. Okay, China has no problem starving its population. It has no problem running them over with tanks if it feels its government is in threat. Okay, so China is going to do what China does. I don't know how that's going to play out with China. They're going to get hurt. They're a big economy, but they're going to get hurt in the long run if they decide to have a sustained war. But they could do so. I think the rest of the world's going to come to terms pretty quickly. Okay. So anyway, now it's 3 or 4 weeks later. What is today? The 22nd. I think he announced these on the 2nd, so it's been 20 days since. And that introduced a lot of uncertainty into the markets, right? So the April stock market is down, right? It's down. It just is. Now, the stock market was overdue for correction. Anybody who's followed the stock market and reported the stock market has been saying for quite a long time, the market's overvalued, it's due for correction. So this correction, if you want to call it, or chaos, if you take the left-wing view of it, shouldn't be surprising to anyone. I don't think you're looking at long-term horrible, but the short-term it looks bad, right? April's probably going to be one of the worst performing if it stays in the same direction of the Dow in 70, 80 years. The first quarter of a president is going to be the worst in a long, long time as well, if the trending continues. So that's where the media is today, right? They're all over that. And some of them are suppositioning that this is going to hurt Trump's support among his base. I think that is not likely, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay. First of all, there certainly is the investment class, right? People who make money off these investments, either directly or indirectly. They're the people who have money invested in the market, and that's how they make their income, is the returns on their investments, or they are people who take a cut of people doing that, and that directly drives their income. Those traders and brokers and things, those people can make lots and lots of money. So they don't like anything that introduces uncertainty and causes people to stop trading or pull out, etc., because it affects them directly in their pocketbook. Same people that are investors and making their money away. They don't like that at all because it affects their pocketbook. They are a very small percentage of the population overall. Now, there is a broader set of the population that cares about the markets in that they have retirement funds, etc., that based on market performance affect them. However, most of Trump's base, most of the MAGA base, etc., don't think are looking at the stock market going, "Oh my God, the Dow Jones is down 1,000. I'm in trouble. I better go to ground." I think those people are going to be more driven by job numbers, by their own world. Is their company they own or they're working in doing well? Do they have confidence they're going to have a paycheck 2 weeks? Are their wages growing? Are the things they have to do in life affordable or getting better? That being food, housing, and energy being the three biggest components, which, of course, other than housing, I'm not sure of housing, but I know food and energy are generally ignored in the general inflation numbers that get reported. And on those indicators, the country's doing pretty well. Jobs are better. Job growth is growing up. People that have been on the sidelines long term are starting to join back into the job market because they see jobs are improving. Food inflation is way down, way down. Energy is way down. The things people do on a day-to-day basis are more stable. The 10, 20, 30% increases you would see going to the store every month are a thing of the past. Could they rise? Absolutely, they could rise. I mean, tariffs can drive inflation. They can drive cost increases. I don't think that's as much of an issue in food in the United States, at least for the people just trying to get by. Most food is produced domestically. We do import beef from Australia, and we do for pork from other countries. But for the most part, I don't see that being a big issue. Sure, these luxury food items like foie gras or, from France or caviar from Russia, sure, those things are going to go up if that's what you're into. But people buying that stuff aren't the people that are likely going to be part of Trump's base, particularly the working class base to begin with. So this media think, oh, Trump's going to lose support because of the way the market's going. If it becomes a sustained long-term downward spiral, yes. If it's a few weeks or a month or two of instability and correction due to the uncertainty Trump is introducing, because let's face it, that's all he's done. By these tariffs, he's introduced uncertainty, and markets hate uncertainty. I say that as someone who worked in investment banking. I can tell you the traders, as much as they like to be portrayed as these great men, largely are not. They are herd mentality folks, and they are cowardly. They want to protect what they have. They are not motivated by grand moral obligations or have a strong backbone to stick with their principles. They just want to make money. And some of them are very, very smart and very, very dedicated. Most of them are not super intelligent. And if you ever watch them, it is a herd mentality. When the market changes direction, the overwhelming majority of them are cowards and they just follow the path. So I'm not thinking that this is going to do too much to Trump's support. Not that it won't have any impact. Certainly there's an investment. There are people in the investment class that are Trump supporters, and it could affect them. It could. But again, I just don't see it being a huge, if it's a sustained long-term thing, yes. If it's a month or two of uncertainty and then it levels out, I don't see that being any big deal. I don't see most people abandoning them. Most of Trump support's going to run away because the Dow took a hit or S&P 500 took a hit, especially if it settles down, which it almost certainly will, and we get back to a more normal behavior. But that's where I stand. If I was Trump, you can't ignore, obviously, completely those issues. But if I was Trump, would I be focusing on that, or would I be focused on energy prices and housing prices and food prices and jobs? That's where I'd be focusing on. Things that create jobs, things that create good paying jobs, getting wages up, getting people employed, keeping food and the things you can't really get rid of under control price-wise. That's where I'd be focusing my efforts. Would I ignore the financial market, the investment class? No, I wouldn't totally ignore them, but they would not be my priority of making sure they're happy and they're coddled. As long as Trump is doing things that build the economy up and create jobs, good, decent paying jobs, keep the cost of everyday living, what the Democrats like to talk about as the kitchen table items that they completely ignored for 4 years and didn't give a shit about, and told everybody, if you brought them up, fuck you, you're crazy, the world is great, Biden's awesome, the economy's perfect, can't do any better than we're doing. Yeah, that is the last thing Trump should be doing, is ignoring or putting the kitchen table items on hold to focus on the whiners in the investment class, because their return on investment is lower than it would be otherwise. I don't see that Trump losing massive support, because that's not where his support largely is. Yes, he has supporters in it. You can't not have those people. It's a broad base, obviously, and I'm not saying totally ignore it. But we know if we build jobs here in the United States, we build an economy here in the United States, the Dow will recover. Stocks recover. Stocks are so swung by emotion, greed, and fear. To claim they're tied to fundamentals anymore is just a flat out joke. After the 4 years of Biden, where the economy was in the tank, absolutely in the tank, jobs were nowhere to be found, wages were declining, inflation through the roof. And what happened? The stock market's through the roof. Yet, what happened? That wasn't the economy. I don't see the average, I don't see MAGA Trump supporters, by and large, running away from him because the Dow flatlined for a few months. But that's the latest thing, just like it was eggs. Remember the price of eggs, and now they're down. So then it was the price of this, and that went down. Then it was this other thing that went down. So now it's the stock market. And that's what they're going to focus on because they have some negative story to tell about Trump. And we shall see. If it becomes a sustained downward trend and it lasts a long time, then yes, this is a big threat to Trump's support. However, where we stand right now, I don't think so. I don't see it. We know jobs are improving. Jobs are improving to a state where people who were long-term unemployed have rejoined to look because they knew there were no jobs. They gave up. After looking for 6 months or a year, they said, screw it. I've tried everything, and I'm not getting anywhere. I'm just going to relax. It's beyond my control. It's the macroeconomics. I have no control of it. I still have very marketable skills, but the economy is crap right now, and I can't find a job because there's 500 people applying for every job available that's in my class. So I'm going to just wait it out a little bit rather than work hard to find a job because there's just nothing out there. So those people are rejoining the job hunt. Jobs are growing. Wages are growing. The economy is doing much better than it was by far over the last 4 years. No doubt in my mind. The stock market, oh my God, no. So, again, a lot of analysis out there saying this is a threat to Trump. I just don't see it, at least not in the short term. I think as long as he's focusing on in getting results in jobs, food costs, wages, and energy, Trump's going to do just fine. Those bread and butter kitchen table issues. Now, the one thing going on right now that could be a threat to Trump is gas prices. As you know, gas prices are going up. You go to pump gas, and everybody needs to get gas. They see it. It's gone up, and it's gone up a noticeable amount. Now, this is because of a couple of reasons. The summer blend always pushes up prices higher because it's more expensive to produce. But when people see the price of crude is actually declining, but the price of the pump is going up, that's a disconnect that the average everyday person, working person, is going to have a hard time dealing with long term. So if there was something I would be more worried about if I was Trump, it would certainly be gas prices. I'd be more worried about the price of the pump than I would be the fact the stock market's not liking some uncertainty that's been introduced by the tariffs. And here's the deal with the tariffs. Most of these countries are already coming around. They're already negotiating. I'm sure we'll have trade deals with most of them in place shortly. There's only, and I said in a previous video, there's only two real groups that could have a sustained trade war with the United States. One being EU, which is a fractious group full of smaller entities. So keeping them unified on anything is almost comical because you'd have to have a majority agreement to do something. And then knowing when you make whatever agreement you make that some countries are going to be hurt far worse than others. And the ones that are going to be hurt worse by a trade war with the United States are mostly going to be your larger economic countries, not the small guys who don't really have a whole lot of exports for the United States or imports for the United States. Germany, your France's, your Italy's. Those are the people that would be most harmed by a long-term trade war. So they're not likely going to be on board with it. And they also seem to have, also because of their size, have a lot more influence. So I don't think they use a long-term trade war potential, short-term precedent, some little safe face crap. China is certainly a threat. China does what China wants. China is its own world. They are more than willing to take long-term pain if it benefits them in some way. This is a country that has no problem running over its own citizens with tanks. So if you think long-term economic pain and the threat of a revolution or a threat of an uprising among the working class of the poor in China is going to stop the Chinese government from doing what it thinks is best for whatever reason, even if it harms the people of their country, they're not going to care. Okay, do you understand it? So China definitely could engage in the long term. And we're seeing some interesting stuff. I mean, things that I didn't expect to happen. I mean, this is definitely not just, tit for tat. We're seeing, hey, we'll pull visas. We'll pull the visas. We'll refuse visas from your country. We'll approve student visas for students going to your schools if you're not going to listen to the rules that we put in, if you're not going to help us and obey the laws on place. And the left doesn't know how to do it with it, because the left is usually the ones who enjoy these types of rules because they don't have to follow them and they're enforced against the other side. So now it's falling on them, and then of course they don't want to follow the rules. They're learning why we have a limited government, why limited government is good, because limited government means both, when you let the government grow and become more powerful, guess what? Sooner or later, you're the target of that government. You celebrate it when the other side's the target, but then when it swings back on you, you have to wake up. And this is what's happening in a lot of these places. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling a little bit off the economy. In terms of Trump support, I think he's fine. If it continues for an extended period of time and you start to see it affect jobs and wages and other things, then it's more of a problem. But the fact that market's down and not doing great this month, quote unquote, historically, I don't think you're going to see Trump's base abandon him over that. I really don't. And I think the media wants that. This is the same media that told you the economy was great under Biden because the stock market was booming, even though jobs were in the toilet, wages were down, people were struggling, people were working 2, 3, 4 jobs, not able to afford their rent. But the economy's great. These are the same people now telling you that the stock market not booming as well as it was is now the end of the world, right? So take everything with a grain of salt. But I don't see it. I don't see Trump losing massive support here. If it's sustained for long term and trickles and it affects other parts, if we start seeing those bread and butter things, those kitchen table things start to erode, then Trump's in trouble. Until that happens, Trump's not in trouble. I don't see any way Trump's going to be in trouble from a support perspective as long as those bread and butter issues are being taken care of, those kitchen table issues are taken care of. I'm not saying ignore the macro. I'm not saying ignore the stock market. But if I was him, that would not be my focus. My focus would be like a border, immigration, jobs, energy, housing. Period. That's where he focuses. As long as he's focused on that, as long as he's having success in those areas, I don't think he's got any risk of what they're trying to talk about, what the left in the media and the left wingers are trying to talk about. Oh, Trump's going to lose support and blah, blah, blah. James Carville out there. Yeah, I don't see it. We'll see. I could be wrong. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. I hope you have a great one, and I am out.